Virtuos is absolutely embarrassing all these other giant AAA gaming companies. Releasing banger after banger after banger. Oblivion Remastered. Big people were saying like nobody's gonna buy a game like this. Who was it that was part of Activision Blizzard said that exactly? And it's absolutely embarrassing everybody. It's getting Assassin's Creed Shadows numbers. It's doing better than Assassin's Creed Shadows. Assassin's Creed Shadows peaked 64,825 players. There's about 7,000 players on right now. The players on right now has surpassed the all-time peak of Assassin's Creed Shadows. And the all-time peak of Oblivion Remastered, 216,784 players. That's so many. That's like Monster Hunter Wilds numbers. Monster Hunter Wilds has like 85,000 people online right now. This has 10,000 less than the amount of people that are playing Monster Hunter Wilds. That is wild. But people are attacking Oblivion Remastered. Why? Because they're jealous? Because they were wrong? Because their favorite games, that they pretend are their favorite games for activist reasons, are failing? They're trying to pretend they're doing good, and they can't pretend that this game is doing bad? Because we can see it. We can see all the numbers. Oh, but that's not showing the numbers of Game Pass. Oh, that's not showing the numbers of Ubisoft's website, whatever it's called. Their stupid launcher. If it's not doing good on Steam and it's on Steam, it's not doing good. And this game is also on Game Pass.
200,000 players. That is the total peak player count on Steam that Oblivion Remastered surpassed this weekend. It was also announced by Bethesda that more than 4 million people had played this remaster already.
Yeah, that's what Assassin's Creed Shadows was boasting about. 4 million players! Well, you pulled the same numbers as Oblivion, a game that came out 20 years ago.
Massive success story that would not have been possible had Bethesda and external developer Virtuos not leaned into the identity of Oblivion by including all of its good and bad features. They brought the improvements in the areas that mattered most, while leaving alone a lot of the iconic jank. Still though, there has been some infighting over a few notable changes, such as the original colorful lighting, as well as male and female character creator options to body type 1 and body type 2.
Honestly, I don't really care about either of those things, because I guarantee you there's going to be mods that's going to be fixing the lighting and the color issues. And there already is a mod to fix the body type 1 and 2 that almost got taken down off of Nexus Mods. It did get taken down, but it got re-implemented. They let it fly again.
Which doesn't really make sense in a game in which there is gender-specific dialogue. Now, with this being a Bethesda game, many look to the obvious answer to solve these issues: mods. While Nexus Mods was all about endorsing the game's reshade mod to make it look like the Oblivion we all knew and loved, they were very much against making its character creator options to how it used to be. The reasoning simply comes down to politics. Want to romance Judy as a male in Cyberpunk 2077? That's banned. Romance Panam as a female in Cyberpunk 2077? Go for it. The hypocrisy and lack of consistency on that website has been prevalent for years, and finally they did budge. They changed their policy after intense backlash, with originally them taking down the Oblivion body type selector mod, a website full of graphic adult content mods, and a simple text change not being allowed. It's just dumb, it's stupid. And yes, while it isn't the end of the world, it's also a case of if it's not that big of a deal, then why ban it? Fortunately, they changed course. The mod is now one of the top.
Yeah, that is one thing that I kept hearing. Why do you care? It's not that big a deal. If it doesn't affect the rest of the game, then what do you care about it for? Well, if it's not that big a deal, then why did they remove the mod of it from Nexus Mods? Sounds like a pretty big deal to me. Big enough that they have to implement censorship on their website. They made it a big deal. It didn't have to be a big deal. We could have just had the mod, but no, they had to make it a huge problem. No chuds allowed.
downloaded ones on the website right now, and my god, there's been a meltdown from games media over this. Multiple articles going after the decision, declaring it as being insulting for changing a needed inclusive design choice. We even saw PC Gamer running with a hit piece stating, justifying the change as restoring the game to its original state doesn't hold water either, since we're on the topic. You're literally playing a remaster, literally a changed, updated version of an old game, and the move to body types is minute next to the revamped graphics, leveling system, voice acting. So minute that they're having a meltdown and advocating for the banning of a mod. PC Gamer continues stating, the bottom line is that Nexus Mods seemingly recognize
it's all about power and control. That's it. They don't actually care. They just want to have power and control over you. The people bitching about this didn't play the original Oblivion, probably aren't even playing the new version. They're just talking about it online for attention and clicks, and to actually have a conversation is not what they're in for. They're in it for the argument. They're in it to feel good about owning you, about all the power and control that they think that they have. And they did have power and control for a while, but they're losing their grip. If this is what they're crashing out about, man. I made a post about this, and that was it. And I got attacked. And honestly, I made the post about it, didn't think about it again after that. I was done, it was over, it was out of my head. I was done talking about it. But man, people crashed out. Why do you care so much? I don't. Why do you care so much about me just making a random post about how much this doesn't make sense that it's in this game? And it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. And it needed to be rolled back and fixed. But if they don't, oh well.
Is that this body type selector mod exists as a dog whistle for phobes, but doesn't seem to care as long as the mod author doesn't explicitly say so. That is the perspective of one of the biggest remaining gaming websites, but this isn't actually what I wanted to talk about today, because while I take issues with that article and its framing, I have a much bigger issue with an article also from PC Gamer that goes after...
Of course it's from PC Gamer. Of course. IGN, PC Gamer, Kotaku... They're all the same. They're all the same company, basically.
Bethesda in the Oblivion Remaster for including its iconic soundtrack. They specifically make the argument that this remaster is tainted because of composer Jeremy Soule. It's a frankly disgusting, vile piece that needs to be deconstructed and shamed.
What did Jeremy Soule do? I've heard this a few times, and I didn't hear about any of this until recently.
Now, PC Gamer, they write, by choosing not to replace Oblivion Remastered soundtrack, Bethesda made the allegations against composer Jeremy Soule everyone else's problem.
Yeah, are they allegations? If they're allegations, then I don't give a fuck. Innocent until proven guilty, my man.
Oblivion soundtrack is a core part of its identity, but it's also tainted by association. Thank you, PC Gamer, in an article that has the comments off for obvious reasons. Now, the problem I have with this piece just to begin with is the framing of the fact that allegations that were made 60 years ago that were never tried in a court of law, they're being treated as if this individual was found guilty. Never happened. No investigations at all were ever conducted, and this was coming around the time of the Me Too movement. We've already seen other incidents like this happening in the video game industry, in which another core developer that worked on Bethesda franchise, Chris Avellone, he had some really heinous allegations that were made against him.
And nobody cares about Ubisoft, though. Nobody cares about Activision Blizzard whenever they actually got in real trouble for stuff like this, facing lawsuits, government crackdown, all kinds of stuff. But no, let's focus on this guy's allegations because he's on the wrong side.
He ended up going full scorched earth against them, and there was already mountains of evidence that disproved the allegations, and he won. His accusers settled with him, they retracted their allegations, Avellone was awarded a 7-figure payout, his accusers even endorsed his return to the games industry. Avellone, with credits linked to Fallout New Vegas, KOTOR 2, Prey, Alpha Protocol, Fallout 2, and among many other games, has since been ghosted by this industry. He hasn't gotten another job in the video game industry, and that's going to be the same case with Jeremy Soule. But this is what PC Gamer writes. They say, they bring up rightfully, that it's been at least 15 years since I last touched Oblivion, but a few seconds of the triumphant theme Reign of the Septums brings me right back to the menu screen. I saw so many times on my Xbox 360, the gentler, almost aching Harvest Dawn conjures the quieter moments I spent wandering around the Imperial City picking locks and pockets. Those are good memories. But today, I have a different association with Oblivion's music. The 2019 allegations of, well, some serious misconduct that were made against composer Jeremy Soule, who wrote the music for Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, and many other games, including KOTOR, Guild Wars. He just has an impressive resume. The problem I have with these allegations that were made in 2019, they were never tried in a court of law. There was never any sort of investigation. It was just he said, she said. There was never any evidence produced. And one of the there was two accusations. And
it seems like this kind of stuff is what's destroying all of these great people in these games. It's like all of the creators and top people of all of the great things of old, they face allegations and then get fired and replaced. And it keeps happening, where these people like Jeremy Soule are deemed problematic.
Total. One was an actual forcible act that was levied against Soule. That one is one we'll talk about in a second. The other was an individual who admitted that they were flirting with Soule and things ended up leaning inappropriately. They tried to stop things and Soule ended up sending a video supposedly that was very inappropriate. And that's that. We never heard anything else from the situation. Again, no investigation, no nothing. But we did get statements from Soule. Soule came out and said that he was disgusted by these accusations and pretty much denied all wrongdoing. And then he just went completely dark. He just has dropped off the face of the planet. As I said before, there were two claims made against Soule. One was more so for inappropriate behavior and a certain type of message that was unwanted. The other was in regards to actual unwanted contact, if you catch my drift. This goes back to around 2008 when that specific incident allegedly happened while working at a smaller studio. The accuser claims they were friends and they stated that's all they wanted and told that to Soule. But they hung out and eventually Soule kept trying to push their friendship into something more. Supposedly the accuser felt that they had to go along with it in fear of losing their job and they were afraid of rejecting him, and then the incident happened, which Soule fully denies, along with the other accusation that he fully denies. YouTuber Azura did a full deep dive into all of Soule's past, including everything that happened with these situations.
Man, I might have to check that out, because I don't know nothing about this right now. Allegations are allegations are allegations. If there's no court appearance or anything, and it's just he said, she said, then I give no fucks. I don't even care if he was like, oh, what I did was a problem. I'm gonna step back and not work anymore. But I still don't think I did anything wrong. It was just a problem and was gross and I shouldn't have done it. Still don't care, because there was no guilty verdict in a court of law. Innocent until proven guilty.
And everything beforehand. I highly recommend checking it out if this is all new news to you. Now, what I'm trying to really say here is that these are accusations. There is nothing, I don't know what happened. I don't know if Soule's guilty or not. I just know that there's no investigation, and I'm just very much against ruining a person's life based on this stuff, especially when it's not tried in a court of law. And I understand all this stuff. These accusations also go back like 11 or 12 years, and I just have a very hard time thinking about ruining somebody's life off of all of this. And ultimately, that is what has happened, because Soule has not worked with Bethesda since then. He already kind of had a rocky relationship. It seems like something may have happened around 2016, 2017, but we can all presume that he's not going to be working on the Elder Scrolls VI, especially because of everything that happened here.
It's definitely going to have a different feel. Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be different from all of the previous Elder Scrolls games, because I think it's just got all new people working on it. Even the music's going to be different. They're probably going to give it the Oblivion treatment where they plug it into the Unreal Engine. We'll see. We'll see. Probably won't happen. It'll probably just be the straight up creation engine like we've seen. It'll probably, I don't know. I hope it doesn't end up being like a Starfield situation. But I kind of do at the same time, because Bethesda, even though Oblivion is great, they didn't work on Oblivion Remastered. And it's not the same company now that worked on Oblivion back then. And they're just a trash company.
And he has dropped off the face of the earth. He took all of his websites and everything off. And then one of the accusers used this against him, saying that if he was, actually innocent, he wouldn't be doing this. It's striking, they pretty much said at the time. And I just find that completely absurd, because I think the counter is the man was extremely disappointed and knew it was over for him. And look, maybe he did all this stuff. I just don't know. And I just hate the fact that you have this PC Gamer article in which they still have articles up for all the accusations that were made against Chris Avellone, and people still use that against him to this day. That's why I just find this framing, going after the Oblivion Remaster over something that was never confirmed, we don't know, there was no investigation, I just find it absolutely so fucking disgusting.
He probably backed out because he knew it would never escape him, and he's not going to be able to work with these big game companies anymore because he's blacklisted, and he's got to find out something else he can do. Or maybe he's just going to ride all of his successes until he dies, because he's got a lot of successful soundtracks under his belt that he can just ride out the royalties for those forever.
The PC Gamer thought it was appropriate to do this, and they knew there was going to be backlash, and I almost feel like that was the point of this article. But it does continue.
Yeah, it was the point so they can get more eyes on it, more clicks. More hate means more clicks.
It says, before Bethesda announced Oblivion Remastered, there was speculation over whether the developer would remix or even fully replace Soule's music. I did not see any conversation about that. Maybe there was some, I don't know, but I never saw any articles or anything about that. Or even fully replace Soule's music as a result of the allegations against him, or due to a conflict with Bethesda over Soule being left out of a Skyrim concert in 2016. And that was, I think, the first incident in which things really soured between Bethesda before the misconduct stuff. People have theorized that Bethesda had to have already known about all this stuff that happened 11 or 12 years ago that didn't even happen when he worked at Bethesda.
They probably worked with the people who accused him to get him to leave or to get him fired or something, because they were wanting him out because he was problematic. He probably wanted too much money, and they probably started realizing, hey, AI is the future, man. We can start generating music with AI. We don't even have to hire somebody.
But I don't think so. I think that the relationship turned rocky, and this is actually the specific incident that people bring up, in which he was outraged at the time that there was going to be a Skyrim concert, and yeah, he voiced his displeasure on social media in a bunch of viral posts, and I'm sure Bethesda did not like that. But like you said, their relationship already was rocky, and if there was ever a chance for the Elder Scrolls 6 he was going to be a part of that, it's never going to happen. PC Gamer then says, but we now know neither happened. The soundtrack is unchanged just as we remember it, and that's how it should be. It really should. Even if everything ended up being true, that is Oblivion. This is Oblivion. There's so many problematic people in this industry, so many problematic, products that we consume to this day, whether the Nike shirts or the brand name stuff and the child factories in fucking China and Vietnam. I don't want to hear this virtue signaling. Same thing with your iPhones and everything. And I understand people hate those comparisons, but guess.
Yeah, true. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. Like, why are we talking about this one guy? Why are we trying to crash out about this one guy? Because this game is super successful, actually, that's why. And we're not talking about all these other games, all these other game companies like Ubisoft and Activision Blizzard. It's because their politics are on the same side, so they don't want to talk about these people. Access journalism, that's another thing. Because if PC Gamer speaks ill will toward Diablo 4 or something, then they won't get access to Diablo 4 anymore. Or other future games. And they'll find a reason. And it doesn't have to be that reason. They'll find a reason. They'll be like, oh, their politics are problematic, so we stopped working with them.
Guess what? That is very much the same thing that is happening here with problematic individuals and stuff. It's just easier to ignore because this isn't, like, I guess you could say, entertainment and stuff. The logic here is so dumbfounding in my opinion. Now, it does mention that Soule denied the allegations in 2019, kind of fucking important, but I guess they don't care about the denial and the fact that no investigations were ever conducted. In the years since, he's almost completely vanished from the internet, scrubbing official sites and social media profiles, and he seemingly hasn't composed a new soundtrack since 2019. And like I said, I don't know if Soule is, innocent in all of this. I also don't know if he's guilty. I just know that he also does have some other stuff in his past in which he's been accused of scamming people through Kickstarter. He raised like $100,000 for a project and then completely vanished off of the earth, especially when all these allegations emerged, and a lot of people were upset about that. They were like, where's my money? Where's the product that you promised? And he never delivered that. There was also some other stuff in his past in which he was accused of scamming people. But again, that's very different than the misconduct stuff that happened in 2019. Again, I really don't like the framing that PC Gamer is going after Oblivion Remastered because of, well, what Jeremy Soule may or may not have ever done. But PC Gamer goes on to mention,
that's not why they're going after him. They're not going after Oblivion Remastered because of Jeremy Soule. They're going after it because it's absolutely embarrassing, all of these games that they get early access to and exclusive access to. That they tried to say, hey, this is the most successful game of the year, and then this game blew it out of the water. Assassin's Creed Shadows. Avowed.
And even before 2019, composer Inan Zur has taken the reins as the primary composer for Bethesda's RPGs, working on the ESO, Fallout 4, and Starfield over the last decade. I also believe Soule never worked on like Fallout 3 and such, so I don't think that was ever relevant or anything. But again, Elder Scrolls 6, that's out of the question at this point. PC Gamer goes on to mention Oblivion wouldn't be the game we remember without Soule's music. I agree, though you could argue the same for the shimmery haze of its original lighting or its charmingly ugly NPCs. It could be two things at once, beautiful and tainted by association with its creator. And then this is where they advocate, based on some of the other stuff that has happened in this industry, that they should have re-recorded or changed the soundtrack. A change may have been hard to get used to, but it's hardly would have been unprecedented. Halo 2 Anniversary's re-recorded soundtrack replaced the tracks by Incubus and Breaking Benjamin with new compositions, though they were untouched if you switch from the updated to original graphics, which is extremely relevant. And you can say what you want, but the main themes of Halo 2 are very much still there. You can correct me if you want in the comment section, but I'm pretty sure that is still the case. And then they mentioned Until Dawn's remake released just 9 years after the original, and they put an exclamation point, I guess, to make a point, included an entirely new soundtrack. Again, we're talking about Until Dawn versus an iconic game, a classic game like Oblivion. There is a clear fucking difference there. Same thing with bringing up an indie game here by saying indie classic Cave Story has its music remixed and recomposed twice in the last 20 years, and fans are split on their favorite version. Again, if they were going to create new music for Oblivion, there would be immediate outrage. There was no reason, because that is iconic, that is core to its identity, as they bring up earlier in this fucking article.
And why would Bethesda pay all that money to redo the entire soundtrack just for there to be huge backlash from the original fans like me? Because I would have been very upset if they would have re-recorded everything and made everything different and feel different. Because the music makes it feel like the original Oblivion still. A lot of stuff makes it feel like the original Oblivion. The only thing that doesn't really is the lighting. The lighting and the color palette of everything. But I can see that being fixed with mods. Also, even if they did change all the music, immediately there'd be a mod to change it all back, and everybody would just use that.
Now, this is where the virtue signaling goes into overdrive. They say, for me at least, Oblivion Remastered is yet another entry on the list of problematic art I once loved. MO for the Eternal, separate the art from the artist debate alongside the likes of Neil Gaiman. Yeah, I do believe that is the case. Is debate even the right word? I think cop-out might be more appropriate. And this is them going after Bethesda for this decision. They go on to say, as I get older and experience disappointment after disappointment with the actors and writers and filmmakers and musicians I once admired, guess what? Everything you do in life, all the companies, everything you touch is tainted by association with this stupid fucking logic. I think we should just understand that there are horrible people in this world, and I think you just have to move on to ignore it. But also with this situation, it's one of those things that is very much unconfirmed, and you are using accusations and just treating it as fact. And I just find that so absurd, so ridiculous, and so dangerous, especially with the consequences of what we've seen the last couple of years with how accusations can blow up and ruin people's lives. I get these individuals don't care about that point of view, but it very much is a point of view that needs to be mentioned. You can hate me for the perspective, but I am somebody that is very skeptical and also just wants to see actual proof and evidence. But in this situation especially, none of that has ever been produced 6 years later. But PC Gamer, they do continue. They mentioned, again, the disappointment with filmmakers, musicians, all these entertainment people that end up.
Man, of course they continue. They just gotta keep continuing. They gotta keep finding bad things, problematic things, so they can justify telling people to not get this game. Because it's problematic.
Being bad hombres. Continuing to engage with the creations feels more transparently a question of, do I enjoy the thing enough to ignore my moral view of the world for it? And then, yes, they are going to make a Harry Potter J.K. Rowling point, because of course they are. Judging by the enduring popularity of Harry Potter, the answer from many, many people is yes, depressingly often. But of course, the question is rarely about just one person when it comes to games or movies. Hundreds of people put their love and sweat into them. Yes, I agree. Do the controversy...
I don't care. Everybody always brings up the fact that, like, oh, well, hundreds of people worked on this. What are they gonna do if people don't buy it? They'll be out of the job. We don't want these game developers to go hungry. Yes, I do. If they're making shit, then they get shit. because I'm gonna shit all over them instead of buying their game. I don't care if it took thousands of developers who are pouring their love and passion into a game, working their hardest, trying their hardest, and it just somehow just doesn't make the mark. I'm not buying the game. Sorry.
Contributions make it okay to enjoy them, or do they just make it easier to convince ourselves we're making a smaller moral compromise? And again, this is just such an insulting article to all the individuals that worked on Oblivion, treating it that one individual, I guess, just ruins the entire experience. And again, treating unverified accusations as fact. Very much a problem with this article. Now, it goes on to mention they go after the whole, again, you know, separate the art from the artist. They say that there's another way of looking at this choice as comedian, but I don't know who that is. A lot of people wanted to separate the art from the artist, but I would settle for separating the artist from her money. Again, they're making this about J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter, because of course they are. Does Soule get royalties from his work on Oblivion, or from sales of Oblivion Remastered? What about from sales of the soundtrack itself, which Bethesda has bundled with an art book for the $10 deluxe edition upgrade? I wish I knew the answer to those questions, but Bethesda did not respond to our request for comment. More than 100 people were credited with making the original version of Oblivion, and more for the remaster. The credits last for 24 minutes. I'm glad we get to experience the passion they had for making an RPG that has some truly great quests in it, as well as some very silly stuff. But the soundtrack Bethesda is now selling as a standalone app in that $10 upgrade that only has one name on it, Jeremy Soule. There's nothing complicated about that choice there.
I do not care. I do not care that hundreds of people worked on Oblivion. Oblivion is good. If one person worked on Oblivion, I'd still be playing Oblivion and not caring that one person worked on it. I don't care if 10,000 people worked on Oblivion. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, I'm gonna let you know it's good. If it's got some bad things about it, even though it's still good, I'm gonna let you know. If it's bad but has some good things, I'm gonna let you know. I do not care who or what makes a game if it's good. It can be completely AI generated. If it's good, it's good.
And this is PC Gamer's attack on Soule, on Bethesda, and the Oblivion Remaster, and I find it so disgusting, the framing, and also the fact that they're treating all of this like it's fact. Like I said, I don't know if Soule's a good person. I also don't know if he's guilty or what, and if he was found in a court of law, and if there was an actual investigation, if actual proof emerged, maybe I would have a different perspective, but none of that has ever been produced.
If Jeremy Soule was into cheese pizza, I would think that he needs to be strung up in the streets. I'm still gonna play Oblivion, because I do not care who worked on the good thing that I like. If it's bad enough, I'll find a way to play it without paying, just so I don't give them some extra money.
All you have is accusations that link back to 2019, and very much so people have had a lot of skepticism with what was reported back then. I've said it throughout this video, and I will say it again. My perspective is that treating everything that has happened, the allegations against Soule, as fact, I just take issue with that. The same thing with going after the Oblivion Remaster and Bethesda for including that soundtrack that has to be there. And the arguments that PC Gamer brings up pretty much for replacing it, I just find it ridiculous, and it really doesn't do justice to the fact that this is Oblivion. This is part of the game. You can't take that out. And I think if we keep rewriting history because there's somebody that did something bad, I don't know where you're going to stop. So ultimately, that is what PC Gamer had to say. I consider it disgusting.
Actually, they don't want to stop. They're never going to stop until everybody is dead and they are the king of the world.
Vile piece, but do you agree with them? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below.
I disagree with everybody. I'm doing my own thing. Fuck everybody's opinions. Fuck what they think. I'm doing my own thing. I got t-shirts down there in the description. Check out my spread shop, man. That's where you get them. My own designs. I worked hard on them.